Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Thank you guys for joining us. So yesterday I did a video called The Eternal Path, and I put it up on the second channel, EEARTS, where I put more of the spiritual stuff because there are people that get extremely offended if one talks about a reality that is different from their own worldview. So on this channel, I basically have been putting out spiritually based videos for those that are open-minded. And it's, been a beautiful thing because, there's a lot of acceptance over there. But at the same time, it's so imperative for us to change this world. And we're not going to change this world unless more people wake up to exactly what is causing the division in the world. And so this was just an article that I pulled up that I made a comment at the end of, because to me, this shows perfectly the problem with our understanding of the world itself. And so the question here is, what does omnipresent mean? And so, if we recognize that God, source, prime creator, is a being, a force, an energy, well, simply a consciousness that is everywhere, all powerful at all times, all knowing, omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent, all powerful, then it means certain things. And in this article, the person completely contradicts themselves, creating a conundrum. It's kind of like, if you really look at it, it's almost like one of those cones where we talk about, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Well, with one hand, there can be no clapping. So that's exactly what we have with this. And this is a misunderstanding that really leads us to separation. So if omnipresent is basically everywhere at the same time, then that would include inside you, inside a rock, inside a tree, inside your dog, inside everything, because if it wasn't in one thing, it's not omnipresent. It's pretty simple. It is, it's very simple to comprehend that. Omniscient, all-knowing. So knowing everything, the only way that something could be omniscient is, again, having access to all that there is, the consciousness of all different things. And when we look at rocks, there is a consciousness to them. Many people don't recognize that. There's consciousness to a tree, to an insect, to, again, animals, to fish, to birds. There's consciousness in everything. In fact, science is showing us that all that there truly is consciousness. And this was studied, and this was completely understood in Taoism, in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Jainism, in Sikhism, in so many of the Eastern traditions, as well as the Western mystery traditions. It was well understood. And then omnipotent is all powerful. And again, if something is first not omnipresent, how could it be omnipotent? If it doesn't have the ability to affect everything and anything. So when we look at this and we say source, God, prime creator, again, those are human terms, is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient, that means it exists in everything, including every one of its creations. And many people might have just a little introductory knowledge of Taoism. But this is the great truth. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. And Tao is everything. It's source. It's prime creator. It's God. It's the way of source. It's the way of God, prime creator. And so as soon as you're able to name something, it's not omnipresent. It's not omniscient. It's not omnipotent. That would just negate it. If you're naming something, you're giving it a separateness, because it is this, it is not that. So just the very aspect of naming something means that it is not source. And that is Taoism in a nutshell. When there is no more separation between this and that, it's called the still point of the Tao. And at the still point in the center of the circle, one can see the infinite in all things. The only way we could come to this knowledge is not by studying. It's by going within. It is by stilling the mind and spending countless hours, for most people, hundreds and thousands of hours in deep meditation. That's the only way we get there. And the masses, most of the masses don't have the willpower, don't have the control to do that, to go within and discover. So in Taoism, for instance, and we're going to look at other traditions as well, you have the unmanifest, which is wuqi, which is nothingness. And then it arises into the yin and the yang that so many are familiar with. And we see the yin and yang symbol, the Tao symbol right there. And, the Tao itself is encompassing all of this, and it's beyond this. It is in matter. It is also in the immaterial, and it is also that which is not. And so when we look at like Shiva and Shakti, and again, Shakti is the divine feminine aspect. It's the yin, it's the manifest, it's the material world that we see. It's the mother in that sense of our personal realities here. Yet Shiva, which means that which is not, is again a reference to the wuqi. It's a reference to the nothingness that exists before creation, before the thought, because it's consciousness that creates. And that is the big key. So what Shiva is really representing is the wuqi. It's the nothingness that comes, that is all. It's the potential. It's potential. It's not manifest. It's potential. It's possibility and probabilities. It's not the manifest. And so we could kind of equate this Shiva and Shakti again to a Gnostic point of view as well. And also going into the Kabbalah, Ein Sof, Or. And here we see, whenever I give a lecture in quantum physics, I feel as though I'm talking on Vedanta. And Vedanta is the knowledge that comes out of the Vedas, and the knowledge of those people of the Indus Valley, which to me, it feels like this is leftover knowledge from the advanced civilizations like Lemuria and Atlantis, and perhaps even off-world as well. And so we see there's different lines of thought. So in the Abrahamic religions, you have God as being transcendent. You have God here, the world there. They're not one and the same, and God's above the world. Pantheism is God is the world, and then panentheism is God is immanent in the world, but also transcendent. So this is what we are really talking about. God is in every single thing. God lives in all of us. It lives in all of its creation. Yet it's also transcendent. So it is in the yin, but it's also the yang. It is in the mother that we could equate to Mother Earth, and not just Mother Earth, but to everything that we see in the 3D manifest universe. But it's also that which we can't see. It's beyond that. And again, we could go back to looking at it as the unmanifest. It's wuqi. So it's both. It's both. It's in the world. It's also way beyond the world. But the difference being that God lives in each and every one of its creations. And it's an it. It's not a he or she. If we're taking it back to a he or she, then you're living in this world. You're looking at things in a dualistic point of view, which leads to confrontation, leads to misunderstanding, leads to not seeing the divine in each other. If we truly saw the divine in each other, we would not have the problems of the world that we have now. Because we view the world as being separate from God, and each one of us separate from each other, not understanding that we are all basically a drop in a greater ocean of consciousness. Thus, we have what we see in the world with all the wars, with all the egotism, with all the me, all the fighting, all the strife, not taking care of the planet, because the planet is part of us. We are part of the planet. all of our problems really can boil down to not understanding clearly that source is within us, seeing it in this dualistic way, and keeping us divided. So we must move past that. So there's a concept of the Atman. The Atman is the inner self. It's the soul that comes back, and in the Vedic traditions, it's reincarnated. Interestingly enough, if you talk to almost anybody from any native tradition around the globe, whether we're talking Aboriginals in Australia or tribes in Africa, South America, North America, Asia, they all believe that basically, everything is God and everything is one when you get down to it. And there's also a recurring belief in reincarnation. And so the Atman is the inner self. That's the soul that cannot die. It's part of God, and it's living in each thing. So our purpose is to reunite with God. And that's what's meant by some phrases like the body of Christ, becoming one in the body of Christ. And the christened self is the one that understands the greater reality. And that's what Christ consciousness is all about. I and the Father are one. It's right there. It's the oneness behind all things, not the division. So, and this is Einstein. When I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created the universe, everything else seems so superfluous. I made the Gita as the source of my inspiration and guide for the purpose of scientific investigation, formation of their theories, and so many other scientists have as well. Because it's understood. Everything is energy. Your thoughts begin it, your emotions amplify it, and your actions increase its momentum. And quantum physics tells us that nothing that is observed is unaffected by the observer. That statement from science holds an enormous and powerful insight. It means that everyone sees a different truth, because everyone is creating what they see. And as we see here, the whole universal consciousness created the individual consciousness within each of us, experiencing itself from different perspectives in which each of us create the life we experience. That's your bottom line. It's all about unity through diversity. We appear to be separate, but we're not. We're part of the same ocean. I talked about the microbiome, the fact that there's 10 times the amount of cells in your body of things that are living in your body. You are a universe unto yourself. We are living. It's well understood in Vedanta that we are actually living inside the body of a being. And so one day a Brahman is like 311 trillion years. And yet, a day in the life of a simple bacteria in our body might only be moments or seconds or an hour. But to them, it was a lifetime. Just like to us, 311 trillion years is an incomprehensible length of a life. Yet, ultimately, we are all connected. And this is the great mystery of as above, so below, but it's just so clearly stated in Vedanta, also in Taoism, also understood in many of the Eastern traditions. But it's been hidden in the West. And we have this illusion of separateness, and in the Western system dominates the world. And this is why we have the problems that we have. If we truly saw God in each other, we would not have this. We would have unity in our diversity and understanding and compassion for each other. But because we are being taught that God is something separate from us, and we're taught in original sin, like we have just as soon as we're born, basically we are, and we should be consigned to an eternity of damnation and hellfire. That is so opposite the truth. And, the real fallen state is the lack of knowledge that source lies within all of us. And it's understanding that we can change the world and celebrate diversity as we embrace the unity that we see all around us. And, it's the clues are there. It's just a matter of people waking up and shedding their conditioning. And obviously this will get a lot of thumbs down, but it has to be done, because do we want to go on in this world, destroying each other, living disharmoniously with each other, living in a quote-unquote fallen state where we don't recognize the divinity that lies within all of us, the oneness. We can't accept that. It's time for unity. It's time to wake up. It's time to understand the greater truth and shed our conditioning that society has given us. So I encourage you all to go within and meditate on this, ponder this, pray about this, and may we change the world together. Thank you for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. As always, God bless and namaste.